Lauren Mills.
Nicole Marisi.
Catherine Horn.
Mary Elizabeth Cofer.
Phil McDuffie.
Colleen Preheim.
Okay. All right, do we have any public comments? Anyone signed up for public?
I'm signed up to speak if y'all want me to.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't have any.
Oh, you don't have any.
particular.
Okay. All right, so our first action on the consent agenda is meeting minutes from last month. Does anybody have any changes, corrections?
No, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All not in favor?
Any opposed?
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Minutes are approved. All right, regular agenda. I want to see first, do we know if Steve Frank is coming today for girls softball?
He did not respond, so
He
maybe
didn't respond.
if he does come, we can come back to it.
Okay, all right, let me see. Let's see. I think that's gonna be a longer discussion for 3 and 4, so could we start with 5 and 6 and go through those to just get through all the little stuff, the smaller stuff?
Sure.
Okay, all right, so, number 5, discussion on park irrigation and landscaping. Yes, did Cleanscapes were supposed to come and we approved last month the irrigation, the drip irrigation, has that been started?
Well, by the time that y'all had your council meeting, there was not time to put it on the council agenda to be approved
Okay.
as a new project, so it will go to council this month.
This month? Okay.
Yes.
All right, well then, that's kind of that. Landscaping issues,
Real quick, when they do that, will they repair that leak that's over by the playscape? There's been a leak there for months. It's on the upper part, close to the playscape, close to the edge of the police station.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that, and I can certainly pass that on to them and see if they can
That would
repair
be
that.
great.
I'm surprised they didn't catch that in there.
report.
We did execute an agreement amendment to the contract for them to do the monthly inspections.
Okay,
And so, I'll also find out where they're at with that. I haven't gotten any reports from them,
for this,
so.
we got one last month,
It did used to be much worse. That whole area was always a mess. You couldn't go through there in the mornings. I don't know if it's because of the timing of the system going off, but this is actually a leak
Okay.
that's persistent.
Got it.
Following up on that, in the meeting notes, it said just the drip irrigation along Gentry.
but, right.
Is that the total scope? Are they not looking, I mean, who handles the irrigation
They
up on the
handle
ball
all the
fields?
irrigation. We had breaks on the Gentry area where it's
Right.
not working. And
There are leaking heads on the ball fields as well.
Right.
So if that,
Right now, the ball fields are covered by the contract
with the
Western
Western Hills, okay.
And so we'll actually discuss that when we go over the RFP
Okay.
on some suggestions. Okay, so that's that. Number 6, discussion on the off-leash dog area. And then we'll come back to the other. Okay, we were asked by city council to kind of look at some of the issues, and the city attorney who recommended to us to look at the New Braunfels ordinance and their rules for they have an off-leash dog area as well, and that we need to establish some rules, and so that was in your agenda. And I've gone through some of them and looked at them, and I think a lot of them are really, valid for our area. There's a few changes. I don't know if you've read through them all, but he said that these would be a great, way to manage our off-leash area. And if you look at it, let's see, number 3, this is probably the most important one, where it says no dogs without people. Dogs must be under voice control at all times. No more than 3 dogs per human. And I think that's necessary, especially because we have a lot of dog walking companies now coming to the park, and they have between 7 and 12 dogs with one person. And so when they're there, if there's anyone else there, there's no way to control that. And so that would be something be valuable. Let's see,
I'd like it to say per person, not per human.
per human, you want it to say per
Yes,
person?
that's
Just
definitely
like
safe.
to make that a little more personable.
You want it to be personal?
Yes.
Alright, I'm just reading what they have,
Yes,
after
yes.
he recommended, the attorney recommended we utilize these rules. And then on number 11, where it says bring children at your own risk, children they have under 14 must be accompanied by an adult. And, looking at the pool rules at Western Hills, at our pool, the rules are children under 10 or must have an adult. So I think that we should probably kind of keep that the same within our neighborhood. To say that, children under 10 must be accompanied by an adult.
I like that.
Do we
Okay.
wanna say per adult then, for the,
Instead of per
other
person.
one? Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good catch.
Would that be, I mean, if
But
you
what
have
if
two
a
children
teenager-
that are under 10 and you're bringing them out there and you can control both your children and you don't need
I
to bring
think that's
another
a good
adult
point,
No, it does,
with an adult.
with an
must be
adult.
accompanied, children under 10 must be accompanied by an adult.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
I like
per,
that better.
not per adult, but with an adult, yes. So you could have two children.
Right.
Of course,
Right.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, we're just talking
okay,
about pets.
okay.
We're talking about pets.
No.
Up there. And then on number 14, let's see, I think all we need is commercial professional dog training is not allowed, and then the rest, remove that, because we're not taking a percentage of somebody's gross. I don't think we can outlaw dog walking groups or companies, because several of them, walk dogs in the neighborhood. I've spoken to a few of them. I think it was Austin Paw Patrol when I was up there one day, and she had 8 dogs with her that day, and 2 of the dogs were Rollingwood dogs. And I was mindful and said, you need to pay attention in the spring. We're looking at our ordinance, and we may start having limits on the number of dogs per person. And she said, oh, that works, because I can just bring my Rollingwood dogs up here and then go get my other dogs and go, elsewhere.
Question on the no more than 3 dogs per adult. What if there's a teenager that's walking their own dog in the park?
That's fine.
Okay,
'Cause
so
it's-
that's not
yeah.
considered an
As long as
adult.
they're over 10.
Yeah. As long as they're over 10, they're fine. It's just,
So that one, adult or?
maybe, what, it
Per
shouldn't be, it needs to be per
Per
person,
person.
not adult.
Because that's my concern, is that there's a lot of teenagers that walk their personal dogs up there,
Right.
and they're not an adult right now.
And actually, we were just limiting the number of dogs. We weren't limiting how old someone has to be to go there with their dog. I
Right.
don't see any reason for a
No.
child to take there's nothing wrong with a child taking their dog. It's just when they have a number of dogs.
Right. And so looking at the rest of these rules, I think we can send it to city council, with kind of these changes. And then at our next meeting, let's look at the most important rules, which would be, I guess, the number of dogs per person and stuff like that. And we're gonna have to figure out what we can post on fields 3, 4, and 5, so that the residents see that, and dog walking groups, and we might come up with a plan then to notify, notify some of those companies, and then also that we know we're coming up there, and then notify residents of here are the rules.
Quick question, so in addition to limiting the number of dogs per person, are we also requiring, commercial enterprises that use the park to, get a permit?
I don't know, what does city council want us to do on that?
We already have, ordinance in place for commercial use of the park.
But it's not enforced for the dog walkers, so is that something,
And does it specifically say for dog walkers, or is it just any commercial enterprise?
it's any commercial, I think last time we read it.
I think it's any commercial, but the way the fees are organized, that it's more tailored to the exercise and fitness classes. So it'd be something we might need to tweak a little bit to see if it would fit. If that's something you're interested in doing, we can do that.
I feel like if we're making these changes and calling attention to it, we really should probably at least attempt to make a good faith attempt to enforce that.
This would be the time to do it. if
Yeah,
we're
this
going-
would be the
right.
time to do it if we're gonna enforce, commercial use of the park permits. It
And
seems
then
like
what would
this is.
be, if there's a violation of these rules, what
Uh,
happens?
Yeah, how to enforce it.
That's,
we-
yeah,
Is
that's
there
the
any-
issue,
do they
right?
have teeth? I mean, like, if you're up there,
They could be cited. It would be a violation of city ordinance.
Is that something we call the police department and?
Right.
Okay.
We would call them.
Well, I mean, is the citation a financial, is it,
Is
are
it a
they gonna be
fine?
fined?
Right.
I mean, what,
how
believe
much is the fine?
I think it's $500 per.
okay, so that should also be posted
Noted.
on the sign that
Sure.
any violation will result in a $500 fine.
Right.
And then, but my concern with this is if we're issuing licenses to commercial dog walkers or something like that, then there's an enforcement issue. Is that something that we want to use our police force to be monitoring, doing that, or, how does it get enforced? Or does it only get enforced if there's an issue, if there's a problem, that type of thing, and there's kind of somebody can call and then deal with it?
I mean, from a procedural standpoint, I think we would rather be complaint driven than actively enforcing, who has a commercial permit in the park. So that would be my preference, and probably the police department's preference as well. But
Do we ask them to display their permit in a visible space, so like around a lanyard or something, so that way we know this person has registered with the city? Is that,
we could, and I just in reviewing the ordinance, and it looks to me like we might be able to apply it to, it just might be the fee structure, but it looks like we might have a pretty good ordinance in place regarding commercial use of the park, so we might be okay there.
What is
They'll
the
be
current
harder
fee
to
structure?
identify if they're not carrying 7 or 10 dogs with them.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
sorry, what was that?
They'll be harder to identify because they're not gonna have they shouldn't have any more dogs than, the 2 or 3 that we
And
allocate
the dog
for.
walking groups seem to come between like 10 and 2 during the day. That's when I have seen them up there.
I just want to interject sort of like a corollary to this is, what is the liability for the city if we're actually permitting these companies? I mean, is it illegal for us to just say no
No
commercial use, no commercial dog walkers?
Well, I think that we have so many neighbors in the
They can walk them
community.
on the streets.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They don't have to walk them in an off leash.
That's true.
I mean, you're basically like making the job of the dog walker easier by allowing them off leash.
Altogether, there's just an off-leash ordinance, we don't technically have a dog park.
Right. And
Yeah,
it's
but the
also-
off-leash
call it the
area,
off-leash area.
It's
Yeah.
not, we do not have a dog park.
Yeah.
but
It's an
the
off-leash
question
Which
of
creates a lot
liability
of
is,
confusion amongst everybody in the neighborhood.
It's a shared, what is it, multi-use?
Shared use.
Shared use, multi-use field.
Yeah.
Well, part of the ordinance is not only the fee structure, but liability insurance. So that, I think, needs to be reviewed for dog walkers too, if it.
so
if
I
it
guess my
could
question is,
comply with that.
is it illegal for us to just say we don't want commercial dog walkers in the off-leash area of the city of Rollingwood? They can walk on the streets, they can walk around the trail, on leash. There are plenty of other options and
Right.
spaces for them to go, but do we need to accommodate them going to that specific area? And if we do, are we taking on any liability?
I think that we need to look at that before we do anything.
Cities don't usually have liability. They're immune. What's that
Right.
term? I can't.
Sovereign immunity.
Yes,
Right.
yes, that's the term. So you could decide either to permit commercial use or ban commercial use of the park. That's well within.
Well, also, I do think it might be a good idea if we're permitting commercial use, part of the application process of the permit is showing that you have adequate liability insurance for, to deal with a situation. Should a resident have a situation with a commercial dog walker or something like that, that might be part
Sure.
of the registration process, just making sure they've got adequate
I'm going.
Yeah, well, let's,
I mean, I think we can put whatever limitations and restrictions we want to on it. If we don't want it at all, I don't think we have to have
Well,
it.
and part of the issue is the more dogs you have up there, I mean, those fields,
They're
we're
just
about to get into that
they're
discussion
feeling
with the
the
Little League
pain.
piece. I was up this past week and, I mean, there's a lot of traction that those dogs make in that backfield area and we're not gonna have grass and stuff grow. I mean, so, and they're just running, I mean, that's fine, but I mean, I'm fine with that.
so do we wanna take a vote?
So what do we wanna do is just recommend, what would our recommendation be?
To ban commercial use at the off-leash area? Isn't that what we're?
Well,
What
I
if
don't
we
know that
say-
it would be at the off-leash area,
What if
cause
we
it's just
say-
an off-leash ordinance. I would just say you ban commercial use of the park, period.
For
Right.
dog walkers.
For dog.
Yeah, for dog walkers.
Okay.
Yeah, because we have the exercise groups, so we can't ban it completely.
Yeah.
So our recommendation, what it is to council, is that we would recommend banning the use of
Off-leash area.
professional,
Commercial.
Just seems a little overreaching to me.
I mean, you know, I mean, I guess we could start with limiting.
It sounds overreaching, but if you're the ones up there playing on the fields
And
with
we
your
have to
kids and
maintain
using
it,
and maintaining the fields,
And if
it's
the
not as
permit fee-
overreaching as it sounds.
Yeah.
I hate to jump in and vote on something really off the cuff. It seems kind of soon. I think starting with limiting the number of dogs,
Let's
I
see how
think
that
that's
impacts
a
us.
nice start.
But then we are
Well,
almost
you're
going
just-
backwards.
You're just
Yeah,
voting
I
on it to
think-
send it to council, which I
Yeah.
think you should, because then you send it to council and
And-
you get feedback from council, and then maybe council kicks it back to you.
Correct.
I
And you
agree.
can vote no. I mean, if you don't,
Yeah, you
you
don't
know,
have to vote
it
with-
doesn't have to be a
Okay,
unanimous.
let's do two things. Let's vote first on these basic rules regarding pets, because
Okay.
that impacts the neighborhood in general and
Okay.
the neighborhood's use. So, with the kind of changes we've made to the New Braunfels list,
I make a motion to approve the dog rules.
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so we will send these, I'll get this copy to you because it's got the notations made. And so I guess our second part would be the recommendation, of what we were just talking about.
So it would be
Ban
re-
commercial.
banning commercial use
walkers.
of the park for dog walkers.
Okay, so, okay, so is there a specific way it needs to be written, or do y'all put that into?
Well, it's just a
specific wording?
recommendation, so
Right.
council would come up with how
Okay,
they want
alright.
it.
They'll
Okay.
consider an ordinance, or
Okay.
they'll at least explore the topic, and then we might have a
Okay.
right, an ordinance
You?
drafted.
When you say the park, does that mean the trails also?
Well, it would be, they could be on the trails because that would be leash, right?
Well, no,
Or that's part of the park, so.
or do we just say Hatley Fields in general, because then that covers Hatley Field 1, 2, 3,
I think you
4,
wanna
5.
cover the lower part too.
Oh, yeah, we do wanna, so,
Well,
okay.
just say the park. They-
No pet walking
No
companies.
commercial.
No commercial. Okay,
Pet
Subject
use
to a
on
fine.
upper and lower fields.
okay. And that also then kind of hits into here where it has commercial professional dog training is not allowed, so kind of, alright, so.
I make a motion.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Alright,
Sorry, what was the vote again?
6-1.
6-1?
And on the thing, on item number 4, it says that discourage digging. If dog digs a hole filled in, we need to have some way to fill it in. If we're on the rules to fill it in. Right now, there's no dirt to refill a hole or any kind of implement to do that with or something like that. So if we had that up the field, certainly I think dog walkers would love to be responsible and fill the holes
I
back
don't
in.
think that we could provide it tools like that, because if we did, it would just disappear.
Yeah, and it would also become a weapon of sorts for kids,
Yes.
sadly.
We're lucky to be able to keep
Well,
it.
Anyone that has boys.
Yeah, the mother of a son, right there.
Anything can be used as a weapon.
We are lucky to be able to keep the pavers alongside the trail, even those kids walk off with those, I
Okay,
think.
then we need to make an adjustment to item number 4 that says that we're not requesting that
If
we
they're
fill it.
digging a hole,
They can
dirt
find
comes
that-
right up.
yeah, that
It's-
dirt goes
It's like when
back
I hit the divot on the golf, I just put it back on.
It's different with a dog where the dirt is being dispersed and out on the grass. You can do your best to take your foot and try to fill it back in, but there are holes up there that aren't being able to be filled in because no matter how much you're doing that, you're not going to refill that hole completely.
Well, right now our fields are kind of in bad shape back there, and I think the goal over the next year is to get them in better shape, and that will mean dirt and resodding and all of that.
Sure.
So I think once that happens, a lot of that's gonna be taken care of, and it won't be so dirt filled, obvious. And the fewer dogs, once we have fewer dog walking companies and things like that, I think we will maybe have better maintenance.
While we're on this area, someone put one of those recycle bins inside that park, that area. And I kept watching it and I kept thinking, why is that staying there so long? If it's for recycled materials, it should be full by now. And I have an issue with these things, so I went and I looked, and sure enough, it was full of people's dog poop bags. So I pulled it out of there. I don't know why someone thinks they can't walk over to the garbage can, which was about 25 feet away. But they put it, I pulled it out of there. I wish there was some way we could get them to put that in the trash. And you're new to this, but we've had a lot of conversations about how to not put too much signage out there.
Sure.
So I don't know what the answer is to that. That's also part of this, is dispose of waste materials properly.
Right.
I don't know how to get them to do that either without more signage.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What's the,
Please go to the mic.
ordinance or?
Please go to the microphone.
Thank you, sorry.
It doesn't pick up well on the recording.
I'm Becky Combs, and I have a question about the waste issues and dog walkers with their little bags or not having bags. How do you enforce that in Rollingwood?
We have bags available near the waste stations or on the waste stations. So the city purchases and provides bags.
I mean, a police officer would have to be driving by and see it at the moment.
Correct.
That's really the only way to enforce it.
Yeah, or
If that's what
DNA
your question
test.
is.
I
Or citizens arrest.
Is there any fine?
I think one of the reasons we're putting the signs up is so that residents who do care about that area and utilize it frequently, they'll kind of have some backup in terms of like self-enforcement. They'll actually have something to refer to. And I mean, that's another reason why we're trying to sort of, cement this ordinance or get this ordinance process going so that we do have pretty defined rules, but I mean,
I'm all
someone
for
to
it.
call a police out about a dog,
Hey Amber, once we get back to full staff after the first of the year, or somewhat near full staff on the police force, can we do like a week when we know the weather's good and just have them enforce it for a couple hours in the middle of the day?
yes, and actually,
Like do an initiative and see how that impacts it?
I think we could. Chief Brady right now has brought to my attention that it's technically not illegal for dogs to defecate on public property, and so we're working on bringing an ordinance to council that will kind of clarify that. Right now, it says you can't on another person's property. But you're exactly right, Buck. I mean,
But it's not
they have to
technically
see it.
public property because it's leased to a third party. So it's public, it's owned by public, but
Right.
it's
Yeah,
leased
I
to a
think
nonprofit, so
there's
it's
a
not-
way. I do.
Yeah.
I think there's a way we could enforce it, and plus
Yeah.
that's just really
Yeah, well,
bad
fine if we
manners.
have an ordinance that's specific to that, but-
Yeah,
But if you
but
push
I
it,
agree. I like the initiative idea.
I do too.
especially with our weather being, I mean, it's supposed to be really nice for the next
Well,
like
and
3
maybe
weeks.
when we do that initiative, at the same time, it can be a full week where it's, once the rules are approved by
Yeah.
city council, an education campaign where it goes out in the mail to every resident in the neighborhood. And here are the rules for pets in the city of Rollingwood, in the neighborhood and within the park. And, put it on Nextdoor, really kind of put it out there across the board so that people become,
Yeah, aware of it, yeah.
Becky, did we address your question?
I think so, and I think that you all know I officially live in the city of Westlake, but I'm still feel like,
We understand.
understand that. So it's just, if you push the dog walkers off the park into the streets, you're gonna have more issues with people not in the yard. And that's just not fair, so.
Oh, we already have that issue though.
Yeah,
They
they
walk
leave
on
their
my house
bags
every day.
just by the curb for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I hope that that can be enforced going forward across, and I hope
And
that.
we're actually primarily talking about the professional dog walkers. We're still expecting that the community, the residents all through here will still use the park. It's the professional dog walkers that we're having issues with.
We're
Okay.
having vans where they show up
I,
and they've got
That's-
7 to 12 dogs piling out with one person, and you can't police that. And also, if it's too many dogs.
just one more question. Is there an official map of the park and exactly what pieces of property are in the park?
No, but it's been a discussion. We're gonna talk about that in January, about doing an additional kiosk that would have a map of the entire park and infrastructure so that people know which fields are
There's a
there.
We've got
comprehensive plan that has all that.
Yeah.
We have
don't
a-
have one posted.
Well,
What we were thinking is we need them posted in the kiosk so that
Sure.
people walk up and they see them.
But we do have them.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
it just needs to.
To be communicated.
Kinda like Town Lake, where
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we need something,
Pretend we're town like.
because we've got the nice kiosk down here and.
Well, I
we
think-
put one in.
I think it would also help in all your documents and your contracts to define exactly what is the park.
We do.
We do.
it is.
Okay.
It's very defined.
Okay, good. I'd like to see it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Alright. Okay, is that all good for the off-leash area for now? Okay. Let's go back to 3 and 4. So, number 3 is discussion on a report from Western Hills Girls Softball. Steve?
For some of the new people, I'm Steve Frank, Board President of Western Hills Girls Softball, who is the main leaseholder right now. Really no report. We're kind of, season's done. Our lease goes through the end of the year. No one's really up there doing anything other than maybe some few individuals doing some practice on the side and stuff. So that's really the report on the lease right now, and then we have submitted a proposal, which I think is the next agenda item, but I guess I'm here more if there was questions or concerns, at least from what's going on up there.
I think it's good for now. Maybe ask about irrigation.
Yeah, so I've had trouble, and I've had, work things get in the way as they do. But I've reached out to them a few times, and they have not responded to me, which seems to be the issue sometimes when the small groups reach out. The city gets better response. So I talked to Amber. I'm going to copy her on the emails and see if they'll respond to me. And so yes, we'll look at the sprinkler systems and things like that.
Maybe that's an expectation we need to put on Cleanscapes, is that when Steve calls, that's the same as when the city calls. That's no different.
Yeah, it was.
Well, you know what, there's some points we can make when we discuss the RFP next, and so I think that,
But yeah, going forward, it's supposed to be, we'll work with them to look at our stuff and everything. It just hasn't happened yet. Anything else? All right.
let's move on to the RFP. Did everybody have a chance to kind of review it and look at it? Let's see, where do we want to start with this? I guess. Let's look at, okay. I think we ought to just start with, I guess, the financial plan and some of the basics. And we all started sort of looking at this, I guess, last fall when the original RFP went out, and some of the things that we figured out. And this sort of ties into what Steve was just saying about having calls. And some of my thoughts are on this, that we recommend to the city council where it says janitorial services. The money come through to the city, and we own the contract with our janitorial service company that manages the city of Rollingwood. We add the field house to that, so when there is an issue up there, they're not calling the city, we're not calling Steve Frank, and then they're calling their company. We simply get the phone call, there's a problem up there, we call, and we handle it. I'd recommend also with mowing, that we require, the leaseholder to have a contract with Cleanscapes for the mowing of the field up there. That impacts our sprinkler heads and all of those things, so that in the event a sprinkler head is broken from mowing, we know who broke it. It gets fixed by them, it gets picked up in the irrigation check. We also, with irrigation, would like them to hold the contract with Cleanscapes for the monthly irrigation check, but it allows the city, when they come through, or if we see something up there, like they were just saying, oh, there's, some broken heads on the field, because you notice it being at the dog park, we can call the city, and the city can call. The off-leash area, I'm so sorry, we don't have a dog park. We have a multi-use field. Yeah. Anyway, but it would allow then the city to contact Cleanscapes and say, hey, we need to check these fields, because the contract is, the invoice goes to the Little League or to the leaseholder, but we have that ability because we also have that relationship and they're managing the entire area. So versus having multiple vendors managing that area, we need 1 to 2 vendors. So, I would recommend that janitorial services, we just have the money paid to the city and we manage that contract. I would recommend that mowing must use City of Rollingwood vendor. And then irrigation, same, must use City of Rollingwood vendor. Because that
Janitorial.
and, well, I said that,
Oh, you did.
janitorial. But have them, instead of having a contract with them, the city just hold that contract and have, the Little League pay us, or the leaseholder pay the city the money, and we manage that contract completely. The other thing under, repairs and maintenance, fence, I would recommend that, after I met with Discount Fence, he suggested that at the end of each ball season, having them come out, they can walk with, they'll walk around with bags and they check all sections of the fence. So if a tie is broken loose, they retie it then versus having 2 seasons go by and kids pulling on it. And so having a fencing allowance for repairs, regarding that of up to $1,500. And he said, it's usually a couple $100. He's like, it takes us 2 or 3 hours to walk around and do that, but it will keep our fence in better condition. We can have them come out in July, and we can have them come out in November or December, which seem to be the ends after the season is over. So, because we have a problem on the fence on the field 1 along the right side where the entire top, down the line, it's all taken off, and you can see where it's been pushed in. Kids hold on, they kick it, it pops, and then it continues to pop. And he was like, if you can catch the pop in the beginning, it'll last a lot longer. So, and it might make them a little more responsible for that sort of thing. Those are my 4 recommendations there. And then, let's see, I guess the scope and services, looking at, adding your maintenance plan and getting the turf in the fields. I would also like to that we recommend to the city council that City of Rollingwood is going to have to invest money in fields 3, 4, and 5, in addition to the leaseholder investing money, because we are sharing that field with them, with our residents and anyone that is using a dog out there. I don't have a pet, but I've gone up enough in the past couple months just watching this and watching the pets. It's going to take a bit to get those fields to to be fully grassed fields, with the amount of usage we have from pets. And I don't feel like that is solely the responsibility of the leaseholder to get those fields in that condition. I think we have to contribute to that, because part of the reason it's going to take so long is the usage we are requiring and allowing. I don't know, anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, I
You're
think-
up there a lot.
Yeah, I'm up there a lot. I think really there is a lot of usage and it's gaining traction. However, I think the reason the fields got so bad is because they weren't irrigated through the summer.
Right.
Yeah.
And once you get dirt and it's just dirt and weeds, then that's what we've got. So hopefully once it's returfed and if it's properly watered through the summer, then hopefully then there won't be so much. And if there's a way to, for the people who are up there to help do, maybe it's bags of dirt rather than, if we've got a concern about shovels and that type of thing, some way to address things as they're occurring as far as holes and that sort of thing. You can certainly encourage your dog not to dig and that's type of stuff, but if there's a way to address it right after it occurs to keep it from feeding on itself, that would be helpful. So,
I don't know, I mean, is there a way with Cleanscapes, like part of that, I mean,
That'd be
that
great.
might fall more on the city, but that would be part of our costs, like to have them up there. I do think we're gonna have to put some initial investment in it, because I think I mean, there's gonna have to be a period of time where no dogs are allowed up there, no pets allowed at all, while y'all, I think we put in there where,
Well, nobody's gonna be allowed on it
yeah,
for a period of time.
while they're
To
getting
really
it
regrade it
Right.
and
under good
Turf it
condition,
right.
but I mean,
and do we have any kind of an idea of what that time frame looks like?
I think it's
I think
seven
it
here.
said
They
2
suggested
weeks.
2 weeks, twice a year for the aeration and reseeding.
but the initial
It's gonna take
is gonna take longer.
a few months, I would think, 3 months maybe.
No, it can't take that long.
No, it wouldn't take that long.
It'll cut into the season.
yeah,
It
so
starts
maybe,
at the end of February.
But I think it would take a
January.
month.
Yeah, it's gonna take a good 30 days, no doubt, to
maybe-
do it right.
Right,
have
no,
that-
and I
to
think
have
we
that
need to
effect.
require it to be done correctly from the get-go, so that we don't wind up with dirt fields again. Cause even though it wasn't watered over the summer, it never looked that great back there anyway,
It's never looked good
so I
since I've been
don't,
here.
I don't mean that meanly.
Yeah,
But I would like to recommend to council that I do think they need to invest in it, because it technically is our asset, our city's asset, and so it's our infrastructure. And, if, I think part of the reason things have gotten the way they are up there is we've relied solely on others to do it and not taking
are
ownership.
y'all giving all this in writing to city council after this meeting?
We can, yes. I mean, we've got our notes and stuff, we can.
That would be
Yeah,
helpful to make sure we don't lose anything in translation.
Okay.
Yeah, do you mind doing that?
It's partially done.
It's partially done, so
Just
we
need
can
to
add
add
to
a few
it.
more
Well, I
things
know it
to
looked like you had it all on
Yeah.
a list, so I figured,
We're doing,
can we just get a copy of that?
we're working on it. Lori and I met and sat down. Okay, what else did we put on here? So the janitorial, the mowing, evaluate, update every 12 months. We suggested that we commit $2,000 annually for backfields to help with the repair and maintenance of the off-lease area, because it's going to annually have more usage. That can be something y'all choose to tweak, whatever, but we really think that. In terms of the lease, also, the terms, we had thought, having a stair step, amount of money. And we had looked at it, cause right now the lease is $3,700, correct? And it's been that way for years, for a long time. We said, and this is just a suggestion, and we can discuss this, years 1 to 3, having it be 5,000, years 4 to 6, 7,500, 7 to 9, 10,000, and 10 to 15, based on inflation and, all that kind of stuff, but that's simply up to council how you manage that, but those are just some thoughts to have it be stair-stepped. Another thing we discussed after looking at WEA and the contract that the leagues have with WEA is that, WEA, and granted, the fields are solely used by the Little League and they don't allow any other usage, is that they have a $10 fee per player, that goes to WEA. I think the city of Rollingwood ought to look at, asking for maybe a $5 per player fee from girls softball and the Little League. It's not $10 because the full usage, fields 1 and 2 are only used solely by the Little League and girls softball, and then 3, 4, and 5 to that. So having that fee that would come in the fall and the spring, that can offset some of the costs to the city of maintaining the park and maintaining the area. You could use that in addition to maybe, say you didn't want to raise, your lease fee from $5,000 to $7,500, you leave it at $5,000 plus you get this amount. But I think what
I
was
like
it?
the idea, but I think I'd rather just have it be part of the lease fee, whatever it is.
Yeah,
just
and
so
maybe
it's
that's what
less
that's.
to try to figure out.
These
for
were
us.
just ideas to give to
These are
y'all,
just ideas, and we
recommendations.
got them because we met with WEA and we were like, how does this work? Looking at how the lease has gone, and we were unaware that WEA charged a $10 that the Little Leagues had a $10 player fee that flowed through to them, but those fields are solely used by the
Well,
Little
those
League.
fields are awesome.
They're
On
really
a different level.
There's a different level, mind you, but those were just different ideas out there, so we won't put that in our recommendation, but I think that's something to be aware of.
Little League wants to make, and Western Hill Softball, not to speak on y'all's behalf, they want to make the fields awesome.
Okay,
That's their intent.
I'm fine with it.
But is there, other than the annual lease rental and the $30,000 contribution for the first 12 months, is there a required, or specified capital improvement per year? I didn't see.
Our recommendation was we wanted one to be in there,
Okay.
and we had it at 10K
Yeah, that they would have a $10,000 a year annual improvement.
capital improvement fund.
And then it has to be approved by the city. We also have to sit there and say, hey,
There needs to be checks and balances throughout
yeah.
what's done.
Yeah, the process.
Yeah,
And
so that's
then,
in the recommendations as well.
yeah, and one thing, y'all had kicked back when we had sent the fence proposal to city council. I apologize, I was out of town, Steve Frank wasn't there either. We had sent the gates and stuff, which this board had voted on. We felt that we needed to provide the gates because the gates from fields 1 and 2 were moved from those fields to 3, 4, and 5 to help figure out the pet issue and to keep pets off of fields 1 and 2. It's still happening. They're still on fields 1 and 2. We've put the signs up now that on fields 1 and 2 that say no pets allowed. I think that's helping some. I've asked the police. They said it's helping some. They're still seeing some up there. So I do think we need to, the city, not the Little League, it's not their responsibility because it's an issue that is city related, fund the gates for fields 1 and 2 and go in and put those on there, but also get our fencing across the board up there repaired, but have it be a citywide project, so we start off fresh with this new lease term of here's how it's set up, and now we want it maintained. Here's our building, now this is how you're going to maintain it, versus, because they're not gonna be able to do the fence, the fields, everything all at once, so our fence is pretty bad up there, so, I don't know, those would be my recommendations.
Does anyone have anything to add to those?
Have you looked?
I just mainly want to say that I really am with you. I agree. I do not want to see an extra charge per player that comes to these fields. I'd like to see that cost absorbed some other way. That's the main thing I want to speak out to. The rest of it, I actually like what your recommendations.
Well, the gates on 3, 4, and 5 are kind of makeshift because they were moved from 1 and 2. And I've heard discussion that there was the possibility of looking into getting those to where they actually fit properly and close properly and all that sort of thing. Is that being addressed at all or looked into at all?
And then what it should be. When you moved the gates from to 3, 4, and 5, was it just dads that moved it, or did you, the
I
company?
was not involved when that happened.
Okay. Or it may have just been, Jack Bob and them, so,
Most likely.
okay. Alright, so maybe, yeah, okay, that's all. That's the
Can you,
next
can you
item.
clarify the stair step? You're just recommending generally,
We think they should have a stair step.
okay,
and then-
but you're not, the amounts that you kind of threw out there are
Right,
not.
we
okay,
just think
alright.
there should be a stair step over the 15-year lease, because that's a long lease. We wanna make sure that the city's gaining money, for the lease, and that, maybe over time, you're reevaluating, okay, cause, every few years your janitorial fees, everything's gonna go up over time.
Well, my thought there is, why are we looking at a 15-year lease rather than a 5 or some term that seems more like we'll know
What
in
our
blocks of
expenses
time
are.
what things are going.
Or can you have, I think the 15-year was to get the Little League and them to vote, or to invest
More
larger
money
sums
into
of money. They
fields.
wanna know that if we invest this amount of money, we're gonna have this lease. So, you're a lawyer, can
Yeah,
you
I mean,
have,
we're gonna have capital improvement requirements in there, so in order for them to make substantial investments over time, there's no way they're gonna do it on a 5-year lease. I mean, we can't ask them to constantly be putting 30, 40, 50 grand into it,
and then not?
and then not knowing, as council changes in 5 years, the park commission will be different.
Can you
they don't-
have in the lease where you say like
There's
every 2 to
covenants and
3 years,
conditions.
costs, need to be reevaluated, where you say these costs will be reevaluated every few years, for the amounts, like with janitorial, because right now it says, 6,000, well, that's gonna.
Yeah, you can put language in there that if there's a sharing of costs or.
Wouldn't it be a
there's-
percentage of increase after so many year term to say your rents will go up 3% every 3 years or 5% or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what y'all did something so much, but it's more than 3%. That is,
Yeah,
that's 50%.
right.
So
I mean, I
it'll
think
be more than, it'll be more, the stair step y'all are recommending has more than enough money to pay for the cost of inflation of those third-party contracts.
And we're not set on this, we just were like, there needs to be some sort of stair step
Yeah.
over 15 years.
So once again, you're just recommending a general stair step. Those numbers that you threw out are not, that's a point of negotiation
That's-
between
yeah,
them and the city.
yeah.
Okay,
Just,
great.
Well, it seems to me, 15 years is such a large block of time. I mean, it could be indexed to, inflation as published by, the government or whatever, something like that. But I mean, doing a set dollar amount stair step when we have no idea and Western Hills has no idea of what finances look like.
Yeah, I
10,
understand what
15
your
years from
argument
now.
is, but the unfortunate part of that is inflation right now, the government is saying is less than 2%.
Right
And
now.
our recommendation is 50%, so if we stick with our recommendation as
Well,
opposed
wait,
to the
whose
government.
recommendation is 50? I mean, the
Well,
number
the
sheet,
park commission is.
yeah, I don't agree with those numbers.
Yeah.
That's what
We
I'm
just
trying to
kinda
get at.
tossed that out.
I
And
mean,
what we
we
were-
know it's gonna be more than 2%, that's the
Right.
reality, right? Like,
But we
it's
know
not
it's gonna
like
be
it's
not
gonna
50.
Right.
But it's not gonna
Right?
be 50.
Well, and 10 years ago, to your argument, 10 years ago, nobody predicted that inflation was going to be at 2%.
Right.
Nobody.
Part of the reason we looked at the per player model was that you could leave your fee, your lease fee lower, and then say you have 200 kids in the fall, and you have 500 kids in the spring, or 600 kids in the spring, that brings in that money to the city, and that can help offset the cost when we're saying, because right now what we figured out is our janitorial stuff in the fall, we discussed how the the 6,000 can really cover the 7 months of the year that the usage.
I think we're getting way too off basis. It would be no different than like a traditional lease with CAM charges, and they readjust either annually or every 2 years. And if there's a deficit, then the tenant comes up and pays the delta.
Okay.
And if there's an overage, then they get a credit.
Yeah.
We're not going to give a credit, so there won't be that.
There won't be. However y'all want to do
But
it, I just think we need to make sure
it'd be the same way
we're
as a
covered.
CAM charge would be if like you went and rented office space
Right.
and you pay the triple net taxes, insurance.
Okay, so y'all are gonna have something like that in the lease.
I mean, I can't say that we're going to because I'm only one person, but I mean, that would be my
Okay.
recommendation.
We'll recommend it, right?
I have a question. Becky Combs, and I have a question for you all on this topic. 15 years is a really, to me, is a really long time, because just look what has happened, I mean, in the last 15 years here in Rollingwood. So I'm all for y'all thinking long and hard before you do 15 years. Another question is, isn't there a $8,000 estimate of water costs in this lease that
That they're paying.
they're paying?
Because right now, I think, what did you say, Steve? Y'all's water bill's been about 3 a year,
Yeah.
$4 a year? And they're planning, because they're gonna invest more money in the fields and more turf and all that they're estimating their water
Usage.
and costs to go up.
And the fields are going to be irrigated? Is that part of the,
The fields are.
are irrigated?
They
Okay.
just, we had some broken, and then this summer, there was a fair amount that had been turned off and across the park, so it was just.
And where's this water going to come from? Are they going to buy it from the city?
No, they have their own account. They have their
That-
own meter, their own
okay.
account. It's not on our account.
Okay. And is there any chance to use rainwater for part of this?
I mean, you'd have to set up a rainwater system and you'd have to have somewhere to collect it. And you'd have to have a lot to collect water that.
There are many places in the park that rainwater, barrels, big ones, like at the garden, could easily go.
I think the infrastructure for that would be pretty overwhelming, and I think they'd need to be looking at more than a 15-year lease before they'd be willing to do something like that. I agree with you. I collect rainwater at my home. I intend to do that at my ranch. But I think for this park, they'd need to be looking at more like a 30-year lease before they'd want to put in the infrastructure. Just the collection systems, and then to be able to irrigate with it, they'd have to have the pressurized system. I agree with you, but I just don't know that that's realistic for
I think if
ball
you were to
fields.
look at the square footage of the fields, like I have 30,000 gallons at my house, and that wouldn't cover a third.
Well, also, we don't have
We
roof
don't have a
lines to
structure.
have the collection come up the roof line
I-
of the fields,
I
upper fields.
respectfully hope you guys will kind of reconsider those opinions about that, because there are places up there that can collect water, and this kind of goes with the whole, the drainage problems, and it just seems like these problems all are not really considered together, and one is like an asset for another. I mean, there's room for the rainwater collection barrels right on the north side of the lower, pavilion, and that's been talked about for years. Why are we not? The down here, perfect place to collect
But
rainwater.
that would not be enough to water these fields.
I agree, but if you have different places around in the park where you could collect rainwater, you're not going to be, pushing it so much from one place. And I think that we spoke before about a rainwater collection system off the concession stand, and it seemed like it was going to be probably too much for you guys at that point.
I mean, we would look at
Cost-wise.
bids and stuff, and it was just, I think it more was like, okay, where do you put the system, like, without being in a big eyesore or whatever.
And
But-
that is the thing, is that the guys who contract you build those, they want you to buy these huge barrels, huge systems. But you got to think outside the box and think more kind of like distributed energy, think about distributed, water. So I just throw that out there because there's a lot of opportunities to use this runoff to water things. And it's just not that hard. So please think about that.
Thank you.
All right, well, I guess, okay, let's go back, and, recommendations to council would be,
janitorial services paid to Rollingwood. Mowing and irrigation contracts must be used with the city vendor, which allows the city, when there are issues, to contact them directly and you can, because we're the eyes, we're the first eyes, it allows the city to say, we're gonna send this email, we're gonna copy the Little League, but we're sending it to our service company, so we're not waiting for the telephone. Fencing allowance, the cost increase after certain times, and then stair step. And then just, we're working on the park commission
Will
coming
you
up.
type all that up and send it to us? and then
We've got most of it, we'll add to it, we will send it to you. You should have all my old emails.
Will y'all do it by Friday?
We will do it today. How does that sound?
I don't know if you're getting down to particular covenants and stuff, but what about getting their financials annually? Because I think you need to know that they can afford this,
Okay.
and if they're doing well or poorly, then that's gonna affect the lease, and it
That's
should
the beauty
affect.
of the lease though, if they can't, then we kick them out. Of the tenant.
I mean, there are
Yeah,
default
rights, they're in
provisions,
default
right?
under the
Yeah.
lease, yeah. I mean, their financials are gonna be based not on their ability to raise money as they always have. I mean, they've proven at First Street and at Way they can raise money if they have access to fields.
I just think it'd be prudent if the landlord to have their financials annually, which they provided in the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with asking for their financials, but I think the reality is there's gonna be default provisions, so if they're in default,
Sure.
they'll have an opportunity and right to cure, but if they don't, then we'll have our ability to enforce it.
So do we need to vote, or do we? I guess
Yeah, y'all should probably vote
vote
to
to send
recommend
these
it.
recommendations to council.
I make the motion that we send the recommendations on this to the council.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. We will get this to Ashley this afternoon. All right, let's move on to.
Well, thank y'all for the time y'all spent on doing that. I appreciate it. Y'all have some good comments.
Okay, number seven for the fence. Since we'd like to send this to council, send it back to council, so that, I think we sent it to council and none of us were there, and there was discussion and, about who should be paying for the fence, and, I think because of the off-leash issue, the city should pay for the new gates on fields 1 and 2, and then we need to have, I guess, them look at the gates on 3, 4, and 5 and make sure they are secure, that they close, that they fit, and they are put on correctly. I think those gates were taken off of 1 and 2, so maybe they retrofit them back to 1 and 2. I don't know, but I think.
That might be the best
And
move.
then the new gates go on the other, but I think that needs to be looked at, and I think that was 1,800. Let's see, what was that? Yeah.
Can I say something?
Wendy Hendley, 3100 Gentry. So the city council did consider whether or not we wanted to replace the gates up there. I know it was a recommendation of this body that we do so. And I'm hearing that, it's also being recommended that we put $2,000 towards the fields. And I just want to let you know that the city money is the taxpayers' money. So when we're talking about that the city should put this in, then we're saying the city taxpayers should supplement the dog park usage.
The off-leash area.
Off-leash, thank you, the off-leash dog area usage. So we have a balanced budget this year. We had to make a lot of cuts and a lot of sacrifices, and I just want to put it out there that we don't have a lot of extra funds, to put another $4,000 towards the park. If it comes out of the park budget, and that's something that the park can budget in your maintenance budget, and there's some way to get money there, I think that's great. But otherwise, you may need to just look at some fundraising strategies for the off-leash area.
What about
having
RCDC
events.
requesting
You
the
can
fencing
request from
project
RCDC,
be a new project to redo the fencing
exactly.
up there, and
But
that
I
is
think that
part of
that's the thing is, I would just love to see some ideas from the Park Commission of where that funding would come from, because I don't think it's gonna come from the city's general fund.
I would recommend that we request it from RCDC.
Yeah, and y'all can make that request, but y'all need to, figure out what projects you want, and they have a form now that they can have y'all fill out, and it talks about the project and all of that, so if you wanted to go to RCDC and ask for those funds, you could. I just wanted to point that out just as of something to think about, and one of the things that New Braunfels did is that they had a big fundraising effort for their dog park, which we don't have. But if we do want to continue to have that multi-use area, there is a cost to it, we're seeing, so, whether there's some sort of permit that you have dog park users, not off-leash dog area users pay, resident and non-resident, or whether you have fundraising, or whether you ask RCDC to supplement it. There just needs to be some sort of thought put into like the cost of that we don't want it to fall on Little League. But where does the money come from?
I think several of us have met with different organizations within the city of Rollingwood, and the Park Commission is developing a small and simple fundraising plan. But what we have found out is that between the Women's Club and the Police Benevolent Society and various other things, that people are a little tapped out and tired of the fundraising, and so I do think on this, because it is a park improvement, our fencing is old in certain areas up there. I mean, it's about, in addition to the gates, to fix the fencing and get it up to where it is a high quality. We've got it on the bottoms, we've got it on the tops. It's about close to $20,000, and I think that is an investment that should be an RCDC investment, because those funds do help benefit our park. And I think going forward, then we are able to maintain it. But it's our city's asset, which is every taxpayer's asset. And if we aren't taking care of it, which we've not taken care of it in 15 years.
And RCDC is their own board. We can't,
Right.
so
I think
it
we
is
should go
worth
there
you guys
first.
going and asking for the funds, and they can decide whether or not they want to designate that. If not, I would just recommend really like looking at having maybe an event or some sort of fundraising activity surrounding that, as I just don't see that we would have it in our city budget to do it, so.
I think we should go through the RCDC route first before we throw out another fundraiser. I know that there is just the fundraiser for the Police Benevolent Society, and it was a much larger ask for sponsorships than I think has ever been seen before in the city of Rollingwood, and
But that's item number 8 anyway.
right. But I mean, I think my personal opinion would be to go through RCDC first for our fencing.
I'd like to do that as well.
It's too big of an
I
initial
agree.
underhaul to raise $20,000 within the next couple of months, because we wanna get
Yeah.
this up before the spring season, which is February, right?
Or at the end of the spring season, if we can't get it contracted and approved, cause it'll take a little bit to get approval.
But thank you very
And
much.
I know that
But-
there's also provision in the contract in the past that we've had with the Little League, where if there's a master plan project that you want to have done in the park, that the city can pay for it in advance and then have it paid back over time from the Little League. So if there's a project like that that you see, that you feel like would be something that the Little League would be benefiting from, you could also write that into the contract and have that as something that they pay for over time as well, so.
We can see what
Isn't that part of
RCDC
y'all's
says first.
recommendations to city council,
What?
we're discussing right now, the fencing?
No, that wasn't part of, it, the only thing for recommendation was to have an allowance, a fencing allowance of $1,500 a year, so that we can have repairs made in July and November after each season.
We'll make a recommendation regarding the existing repairs that need to be done, right?
Would
Aren't
you
we
want-
wanting
20,000?
That's what,
I thought we were going through RCDC, cause are you wanting the Little League to put, 30 grand into the fields and 20 grand into the fencing? Or you-
Well, I don't know what the budget is, but I mean, I think any recommendation from y'all and then our discussions with Little League, it'll be, just so we're discussing it all at once,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Thank
So
you.
you want us to go through you first and then
Before we go to
if it
RCDC.
doesn't work.
No, you can go to RCDC in the interim, you can
Okay.
you can go
And
to
maybe then you can
simultaneous
negotiate in
paths.
the lease that Little League pays it back,
Right.
even if we
And
get it
then
approved first.
if for some reason it works out with Little League and softball, then you can get the funds from RCDC and then deny them,
Right.
right?
Right. Okay.
If that makes sense?
Yeah, that makes
I'm just
sense.
trying to speed up the process.
Okay. All
I
right.
like
so,
that.
Yes.
All right. Well, we have our discount fence bid, which I think is around 20. Yeah. So I guess my recommendation would be that we go through RCDC process and we submit this to City Council
So,
to review.
so what think I'm hearing on the discount fence request, this wasn't looking at taking the gates that were taken from fields 1 and 2 and
No,
putting
it
them
was
back
simply
into it.
putting new gates
Right,
on 1 and 2.
understand. Since the 3, 4, and 5 don't fit because they were not sized, how long does it take to get
A bit.
one of these bids if they moved the gates that probably fit
takes
on
a
1 and 2?
while.
Yeah,
So what I would say maybe is we request this amount and ask for, we could ask, I guess we could ask for a modification for a little bit more and we can get discount fence back out here to look at it. But in my experience this past fall, getting any fencing company to come out here is near impossible. And finally got this one out here and then it
Sure.
took a month to get the bid.
okay.
So it just,
And then you have to get approval.
then you have to get approval, so I would say we start this direction, because otherwise
Nothing
it'll
will
be,
happen.
it'll be
Too long.
June and nothing will have happened, sadly. That's it. Okay, so I guess what's our how do we make this recommendation? We make a recommendation to put this through RCDC and send it to city council to review for,
With your other lease
with the
suggestions.
lease
My
adjustments.
suggestions
Okay,
for the wood.
Okay.
alright.
And that will request a modification to this estimate
Once
if
we-
they can retrofit back 1 and 2 back to the original and then bid out 3, 4, and 5.
Alright, so,
I'll make a motion.
okay, we make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, and then, how do we do the RCDC? Do we need to sit down with you and fill out the RCDC request?
Right, I think they have a new form that they would like you to fill out, and so I'll make sure that you have that. If you have any questions or need assistance, I'm happy to help.
Can I just come up here and we do it together this first time? so
Sure.
that we know how to do it?
We'll learn together.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Let's see, hold on, let's, cause I know some people have to leave a little early. Do you mind if we skip down to, number 12 real quick? Which is discussion on member terms, term expirations, and intent to continue serving.
Yeah, let's not have any abandoners here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This is something we've had on every board and commission agenda in December. Just getting feedback from you all to make sure you wish to continue serving, and if so,
Oh, they do.
okay,
Do we
great.
just go down the line, or how do you want to do this?
If there's anyone who doesn't raise their hands, if you wish to continue, that's great.
Okay, wish to continue, yeah,
Great.
yep.
We raise it if we wish to.
How are you doing
No,
that?
no, if you don't wish to
Don't
continue,
wish to continue,
raise your hand.
Okay,
Sounds like everybody does, that's great. So we will make sure that this is passed on to the city council for approval at the next agenda. And you do have one vacancy, so if you wanna try and recruit for that.
Alright, and then you know what, I think the fundraising plan is gonna take a few minutes. Let's do trail issues real quick. Are there any trail issues that we need to be working on? I know Parks and Trail by the parking lot between the pool needs some fixing, but I think we're waiting on drainage and a bond. Is that, should we, I mean.
They're just all linked together,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So basically basically, should we just, I mean, any of the issues that are on the trail just need to be kind of maintenance a little bit right now? I'm not aware of any major issues except for some areas where there's been some drainage and runoff and maybe needing to have cleanscapes
I
come
think
in.
that's gonna be never ending, no matter what.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
That's just part of it.
Amber, did we budget for crushed granite in the park budget?
I'm sure it's in there with the maintenance and repair.
Maybe
I
that's part of the maintenance schedule is when you refresh the.
and I guess maybe we need to meet with cleanscapes and
Is there an
come up.
alternative material they could put in for the landscape instead of the decomposed granite, since it has a tendency to really wash away quickly? Something that might be a little bit sturdier, but still
Concrete.
allow-
There's composite trails now, but that's
Okay.
expensive,
Okay.
and we tried to get a trail grant, and we didn't. You know, my husband works on the Violet Crown Trail, and they're doing something called Stay Lock, where it actually adds a binder to it, but even that's pretty expensive. So until we deal with the runoff situation, and or do something with the borders, the stone that's along the sides, I think we're gonna continue, any material we put down is going to run off. And I look at that and I think it's gonna be such a big job to raise up those stones and get them where they can kind of hold in that granite. So again, it's dealing with the runoff and the drainage.
I mean, there's a couple spots where you could probably just put a pipe in that ran the length and came out a foot on both sides, and then that would probably fix it. There's some little things you could do.
That would deal with the biggest issues. There's a
Right.
couple areas that would take care of the biggest
But
problems.
yeah, some of the other stuff doesn't matter what material you have down there, what kind of base you have, it's gonna always be that way unless you put concrete.
It is. And that
That's part
area
of
where you go around the corner there at the end, where you come past the pool, you get to the end and you turn left there,
Yes.
that's the area that would probably be the most helpful. That's the
Sure.
most dangerous
Yeah.
as far as the deep ruts that
might
it
be impacted
creates.
with-
That's the biggest, that's the most dangerous area for runoff.
Do
So
we-
that when people go through there in, after a rain, it's very deep and that's dangerous.
Do y'all and some council members, do y'all anticipate, some of the park on that side being included in any bond that is going on in May? Like because of the drainage issues from your drainage report, anything like that, do you think that will be included?
We are still working on, the drainage, recommendations coming from, we haven't received a full report yet. We know where some big problem areas are, but, we have.
I
big
think it should be
problems.
considered if that's what your question
Okay,
is.
okay,
I
'cause
think
I don't
it
want
should
us to
be-
try and undertake fixing anything that may be fixed in a larger, more comprehensive plan.
They
Yeah.
did look at it
Okay.
as part of their study, we just haven't identified the projects yet.
Alright, sounds good.
How often is Cleanscapes coming out and, or is there any kind of a schedule on that right now?
They're not, Cleanscapes is not responsible for the trail, it's the Public Works crew, and they do it on an as-needed basis or as we hear. If you all see any of that, we have a work order system, just call up City Hall and tell them about the work order. I think, the pipe, underground is a project that they could easily tackle. So
Yeah.
if we just understand where it's at, then I can get them to
And
work
I'm
on
not
it.
sure if that's the perfect answer, Buck, I don't know what your opinion
I
is.
don't know, but maybe you and I go up there and meet with City Works and try
And
to
we,
come up
and we
with a
may need a
solution.
trail expert actually to look at that, that's kind of a big area.
Yeah,
And the way the water runs down, and we actually probably need a trail person to look at that. And I can ask George to recommend somebody, but that's kind of an area that's an issue. So,
We could have Josh McKay look at it.
oh yeah, that's a good idea.
We'll do that.
that'd be great to get some professional advice on that, cause it's a big enough area.
Do you wanna be
Before
in charge
we-
of that, or Sue?
Sure. Who is this person?
Josh McKay, he's kind of
He's one
our,
of our residents, but all he does is infrastructure for the city of
Mhm.
Austin and other municipalities around town.
That's what we need to
he'll
do.
definitely have a
Do
solution.
you want to set a time and
Sure.
we'll just meet
Yeah.
there?
Sure, I'll reach out to him and get everybody organized.
Alright.
That's
To meet.
perfect. Okay, great. That's gonna save us a lot of time and money if we just go
Yeah.
ahead and just jump on that.
Alright,
I think if we had, I mean, I understand if somebody sees something, putting in a request, but right now, since that's not happening, it's unlikely that unless we somehow put the word out that that is an option or something like that, it's likely to continue not to happen.
well, and we're starting our park walkthrough in
Oh, okay.
December, where we're gonna do a monthly walkthrough.
Okay,
And,
We just haven't signed you up yet.
okay.
we're starting that where we can go through, where one member of the park commission along with a city staff member will come once a month and they'll walk the entire park
Okay,
from
that's
front
exactly
to
what I'm
back.
thinking should happen.
And
Okay,
we
great.
can look at issues, and we're working on a checklist and,
Awesome.
so that it can be a standard, and then every park commission member will have to do it once or twice a year, and then that way you also know every aspect of the park as well, and,
Sounds
different
good.
eyes, but then we'll go with the same one or two city staff members, so there's some continuity.
Sounds good.
And we're copying that model from WEA, cause that's what they do, and they were like, that's how we catch everything, so it's,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, you know what, let's do pet paper project, cause that'll be a quick one too.
Yeah, that's a quick one. We got the cards, they're really cute.
Thanks, guys.
Here.
Sorry.
Front,
Okay, thank
here's
you.
the back.
Thank you all.
And we've got envelopes, so I'm gonna give these to you. I made, some changes to the spreadsheet, or updates to the spreadsheet. I emailed everyone who had placed an order, and some people had paid, some hadn't. Some we had that issue where they thought they were getting a 16 by 16 paper, but they're really only getting a 12 by 12. So clarified everything individually based on each individual situation, and have asked all of those people, except for the person who just bought one on December 4th, to go back to the website. I provided them with the text that they had written the first time, but just to go back to the website, pick a new logo or logos, and sort of re-input their text. And also people who hadn't paid, obviously we're asking them to pay online, and then also offering them the gift card acknowledgement if they want it. So hopefully we'll get all 22 of those people to get back on and resubmit.
We've already had a few.
Great, and we'll kind of keep track of that. And then I sent an email out to all the people who I collected cards of interest at the Rollingwood Women's Club meeting from, and sent them an email that it's up and it's live, and that we've got the gift card option, or gift acknowledgement card option if they want to do that for the holidays. And the only other thing that I really would like to do is I still have that cute ribbon from when we did the fountain dedication. I would love to get the front and the back of this just laminated like together on a sheet, and I can hole punch it and maybe tie it onto the fence post at the entrance to the dog park with that that dog ribbon bow, just to attract people's eyes and attention, so that they know if they're looking for a holiday gift for the pet or pet lover in their life, that they can go ahead and order it and put the website on there, because as far as I know, we don't have the new banners yet, the new big banners up. So I'd love to get this laminated and add the website, and just, I'll hole punch it and I'll tie it to the post. I can tie it to a few posts if you want to laminate a few of them.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Okay, and that's it.
How much longer are we doing the pet paper project?
So that was part of my email communication. I made an executive decision that we will stop ordering, or cut off the orders for this spring on December 31st. And then I indicated that it would be installed by late spring, which I think is very doable.
Why don't we plan to take?
And that the installation location is right around, immediately surrounding the dog fountain.
So should we maybe take the banners down at the end, we'll take them down January 1st?
Yeah, I think we could take them down, number one, because they have inaccurate information, and number two, I think, if you leave them up all the time, people just start to ignore them. I think we take them down and then put up the new ones with all the correct information, and maybe add the website and take away that laying a brick thing in the spring. Now, Austin Parks Foundation does it twice a year. I feel like we should leave the website open all year long, but I feel like we should only do installations once a year. I mean, we're not that big of a
That's
park.
exactly right. You don't want to be on the hook for doing this ongoing. Maybe even once a year, maybe even be too often. Wait and see how it goes.
Well, I think we can communicate that on the website. It's just we'll close all the year's orders out on 12/31, and then late spring is the time frame for installation, the general time frame for installation, and we can just have that as an ongoing.
Yeah, and it can stay on
Fundraiser.
our website and stuff.
There's no cost to having it there on the website.
Perfect.
Okay, alright.
You've done such a great job with this. I got your email
Oh,
this morning.
thanks.
It was easy to understand. I
Good.
immediately responded.
Yes, I got those all out last night because I was like, I had to get
You've
it
done
get
a
it
really
in.
good
but,
job.
Hopefully, we'll get some more orders if we can advertise the gift cards before the holidays.
Well, thank you.
Alright, let's do the park financials real fast.
Yeah, and then, okay.
Any info on that? Andy?
Alright, pull them up, okay.
Oh.
We're 1 month through the fiscal year, 8% of the way. And a lot of the things that you see close to the 100% mark are insurance and things that are just a one-time annual expenditure.
Do we need to take any action on anything, or is it?
Nope, just a review. Are there any questions for me regarding the financials?
So we have 2,906. Oh, never mind.
I don't have any questions.
Alright. Do you have any questions, Bill?
Nope.
Alright. So, let's see. Now, I don't know what this one is on number 10. Amendment to the park rules, was that basically what we were recommending, the dog stuff?
I have a feeling it was.
So that's already, we've already done that.
Mhm.
Okay. So now
Can we discuss number 8 at all?
That's where we
Oh,
are now.
good.
I just wanted, I knew that was gonna take longer, so I
Right.
thought, let's get our little ones quickly.
Yeah.
Fundraising plan. Nicole's here.
Thank you.
You missed our last meeting. What we talked about was we feel we met with different people in the neighborhood, and there's a lot of asks out there, and there's a lot of arms reaching for dollars, and we don't feel like people are gonna give as much towards maintaining our park versus, you know, this or that, but that we could do kind of a Friends of the Park campaign, which annually people can become a patron of at different levels. And that we should just have some basic levels, but that our goal would be to just simply raise $10,000 a year through something like that we can start off this spring. And people could, you know, at a minimum, be a patron of the park for $120. If we get 100 people to do that, you know, that's a fair amount of money. But, we don't want to have to have a big event unless it's something that, is necessary, you know, for a
I don't
big
think people
fundraiser.
want
Yeah,
another
I
event,
think- I
is
think-
what we've decided. And I know that you can do an opt-in thing without any kind of legislature thing. I think that there's a lot of people in the neighborhood that love the park enough that if they realize that, I think most people don't realize that we're struggling to provide for the park. And if they thought that their $10 a month or $1,000 a year, for a lot of people, wouldn't make any difference in their budget.
Sure.
I think they would be happy to contribute.
Yeah, that's interesting. So communicating the struggles that we have, educating people, I think, is always a great way to start. But residents here don't know what we're facing, then how can they come and help solve the problem? So I think any kind of effective communication that we can do and put together and maybe brainstorm on, even if it's a flyer that we send out or, that is a great first step. I really believe in that. You know, I think of off the top of my head, like a triathlon. We have the pool, we have a track, we have bikers, we have bike lanes. Is there a way that we can do something,
Well,
knowing the demographic of our community here, can we get access to the demographic of our community? How many families with children at the ages?
So you're
that-
talking about
I
doing
think-
an event.
yeah, I think what we found out, like we met with the women's club, and as of now, they're not having the 5K this year. Okay.
They can't even get volunteers for their
They can't get
events.
volunteers, and so there's been a shift in what we've all noticed, like I've lived here since '05, is that it's shifted from being heavily inundated with volunteers to, a lot more working, dual house working, very busy families, and everybody's volunteering at school or here or there, and so we don't have the volunteer structure that we used to have. And so it's being pushed and pulled, we now have the Police Benevolent Society, we have the Women's Club, we have the 4th of July event, we have the Easter event, we have the wine and cheese at Christmas, and the feedback we've kind of gotten is less is more at this point. And so we were simply thinking of just a simple campaign versus something that's out there. And, we've talked about various ways of doing it where, you could have 10 or 12 people that make sure that they walk their block or find people or that sort of thing, but an awareness campaign,
Well, we have
and then here we've got this, you can give to the park in these ways, because people have just said, we can't, like they couldn't find anybody to
There's no more
share
Sure.
this or that, and so.
At the RCDC meeting, one of the things that they talked about was community events and really wanting to see that. And I know they expressed some interest in hiring a party planner to do it.
And what?
Hiring a party planner or an event coordinator to put on an event from RCDC funds, and it's something that they can do.
Are you kidding?
And then if you wanted to have a fundraiser or a community event, it's something that has come up high on all the surveys, on the everything that people like about the park. In the master planning project that we did, people wanted to see more community events.
The
That's great
problem is
feedback.
who's gonna host those, because I think, one thing we talked about is we have an ever-changing board along here right now. We have a group of us, but
Do you have a question?
how do we get people to do that?
Becky Combs again. What items do you, for the park budget, do you need funded? Like, what are your top 3 and how much are they?
We have an $80,000 expense annual.
An $80,000 sunscape?
No,
Expense,
our,
annual
the
expense.
cost, and they're going up. That's actually sort of a low, like, as we are looking at what it costs to maintain our park. We haven't added as much to it in the
And
last couple
it's
of years.
very underfunded at that level.
And so,
$80,000 just for the maintenance of the park.
right, and so, our goal was at a minimum, if we can this first year, just say we wanna raise 10,000. Some of the feedback we've gotten from people is, well, wait a second, why can't we fund our maintenance of our park? And, people seem more inclined to fund an object or a playscape or this or that, but they don't necessarily wanna fund maintenance and operations.
Which I have looked at the Rollingwood Park, the Rollingwood budget and specifically the park budget because of being involved in the garden for probably 10 years now. And part of my question has always been, it seems like you all are paying a lot for what you're getting. For instance, you could be getting, I think I looked at a cost in Cleanscapes for mulch, and it was outrageous. And I don't know what items, here's the problem, is what items are
Mulch
being done.
isn't budgeted for from Cleanscapes.
It's not? Okay, so that's part of the city's, that's the
They
80,000?
opted, the bid that they received from Cleanscapes was pretty large for the budget, and so they opted not to contract with Cleanscapes for mulching. So
Good.
all they're doing is relying on It's My Park Day to mulch.
Right. And we did It's My Park Day this year and realized that we probably need more mulch than what was requested this first year. So next year we can do that. We can also purchase mulch from Boy Scouts, which is local, and see if we could get them to help us spread it, things like that, for volunteer service hours. But I mean,
I
we're
know.
all just kind of coming, our entire commission is new. Everybody on us is new in the last 3 and 4 months, so we're all coming up to speed and learning about it. All of the historical knowledge of people that were on here, they are all gone. So you have to give us a little bit of
I'm-
time, because we're trying to evaluate what are the costs, what are the needs, but the cost of things in Austin has just skyrocketed across the board, and so that's part of it. It's kind of like us saying we couldn't get fencing contractors out here. They're not coming out unless it's a decent job.
Right.
And a decent job is a lot.
Because
And
there's so much new construction in
Oh,
this whole area.
they
And
don't need it. They don't
yeah.
need fence repairs. I mean, Discount Fence was the only guy that was like, I can have somebody come out. This is what I would recommend. They do another ball field up north, and he said, this is what we do up there. We go out in July and we go out in November, and we tie things up so it lasts longer. And he was in great examples. I mean, he and I walked every inch of it. And he was like, look,
Good.
here's why this is doing this on the bottom, and here's why this is doing this on the top. So if you've got a kid on there swinging, he's pushing his feet, those, they pop off. And he was
Yeah.
like, if you can catch them at the beginning, at the end of the season, when they're first starting that popping off, it ties it up, and then you're not gonna have to replace as much one day. So we're learning. Right now, it's kind of a process. So any suggestions, maybe we need to have like a
Well, how
suggestion email.
How much of the, in that bid, they're removing the fence and they're installing new fence?
In
Okay,
certain areas, yeah.
in certain areas. How much? Okay, what are they doing with the fence they remove? Where's it going? They're hauling it off. They're charging a lot to haul it off, and where's it going? Are they going to reuse it, or is it going to go to another project? I mean, I have not walked the fence.
Fencing bid all we want, but I think we're talking about fundraising now.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
Oh, yeah,
Becky.
yeah.
I'm sorry, and I have to
Oh,
leave.
you-
I'm sorry, we've got to stay, just,
Oh, yeah.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
Okay, well,
fundraising at a minimum.
I'd
we would-
like to know what our resident demographic looks like. I think it helps us to say, we have 700 homes here, these are empty nesters, these are this age.
Funny you should ask for that. So RCDC
It's in
just
it.
undertook a commercial corridor study, and they did a cell phone analysis of who is coming in and out of Rollingwood, where they're coming from, where they go after they come to Rollingwood. The study showed that we have 8,600 unique visitors to the park. Unique.
Wow.
And it also, so I can distribute that information to you all. That'd be very, and the demographic information is included in that as well. And so they specifically studied who was coming in and out of the park, but then they also looked at Mira Vista, Trader Joe's, all those areas. And so they, it
Well, I
really
would
is
like to
kind of
know
creepy,
where-
but it's
how
out
that
there.
got collected, just so it's not pinging people just driving down Rollingwood Drive or something like that near the park, if they're going off of cell phone records.
And also, she'd like
See
to
how
know about
accurate it is.
residents.
Correct.
It's not like 86.
I think of residents.
The only problem with accuracy was the fact that our cell phone reception is spotty here.
Sure.
But otherwise, it's very accurate. This is a market study that businesses will perform before they locate somewhere. Like an HEB will undertake this kind of a.
Rollingwood Women's Club printed that directory, so I don't know what percentage of residents are in that directory and how accurate it is with the children in the home. Again, I think if we understand what our demographic is, we can then put together a marketing plan and say, all right, let's go ahead and let's do a pamphlet. Let's educate our residents on what the needs are of the park, why it's important to contribute, and we can do a park funding campaign or something like that. Your money goes toward X, Y, and Z. Again, and you get a yard sign. I'm part of the Rollingwood Park annual fund campaign or something. So we can make this about somewhat of a community, like look at all the people that are supporting us and try to get that. And then there was this other, again, I think kind of out of the box sometimes, but we have a beautiful park here. We did this thing up in Now's where we had, it's called it's an overnight camping experience, right?
Like fathers and flashlights.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so if we understand our demographics and you pay to put your tent out and you get local folks to come and do food or entertainment or things like that, all of a sudden you're building community. You've got this great event. People drive by Rollingwood and they see all these tents. What's going on? What's going on? And again, we live in a very awesome community, and I'd love to see that continue to grow. Of saying, how can we show what we love to do with the friends and the neighbors around us? So again, just little ideas that I think if we can, yes, it takes a person to spearhead it. It takes a committee to run it.
That's what we're finding right now. Like when we talk to the women's club about the 5K, the thought is, let's see if people miss it this year. And then if people stand out to do something else. One discussion was having like we saw one other community did this in their park where they had a trailer park night in the
Yes.
park. And so it was a dinner, it was a community-wide dinner, so everybody is included versus when you have the fathers and flashlights, I think it's great, but it becomes, a certain segment that's gonna get out there and camp for the night with their kids. But if you have kind of a picnic in the park where everybody can come and you can highlight everything that goes on in the city and
Well,
donate.
National Night Out is,
Yeah.
we get you get people from all aspects of the community there. That's a perfect example. But again, it comes down to trying to get volunteers.
Sure.
What I was looking for is something, maybe even something Bowie and Company could help us with. I don't know, but I'm looking for something that's not gonna require a lot of volunteers, because I'm telling you, we're not getting them here.
Yeah. It's,
So,
again, just from my little bit of experience with it, you'll have a better chance of success with doing an underwriting campaign because you don't have to have as many volunteers.
then
You wanna
that's
do
what
a
we need to
community
look for.
event, then
But we
we're
don't
gonna
wanna
need
do a
to
community
we're
event.
gonna
Would
need
you
to
like
partner
to be
with.
the person in charge of fundraising on our committee?
I'm happy to help. I'm happy to help.
Okay.
I just need
Everybody's
knowledge of background. Well, I just need knowledge of background of what historically the park commission has faced, what our challenges deficit wise, putting together, working with city council to understand that messaging that has to go out is where I'm deficient.
Right.
But I think putting the messaging out there is a good first step, and then we
Right.
build a campaign off of that, and we see kind of how that works and how that runs, and make people wanna contribute to it, because if we don't, my poor kids say to me, now that you're on the parks commission, can you go help make the fields look better? I'm like, I'm trying.
I have
Okay.
Well, do you wanna be in charge of kind of researching that and figuring out with the city sort of what our
Yes.
demographic, what our needs are?
Yes, I'm happy to help with that.
I'm gonna let you spearhead that one.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that good with y'all?
Yes,
Yes.
that's great. Thank
And
you.
we have raised $2,500 with the pet pavers.
Awesome.
Which is
So,
the beginning, 'cause last
um,
year they raised, I don't think they raised anything.
I don't think there were any that were dated prior to last year. Is that designated for anything at the moment? Just out of curiosity. Okay, all right.
And some of that money will go towards the
Well,
pavers.
some of
and
that money
putting
will
out-
go towards the pavers. Certainly, we haven't put in the paver order yet.
Yeah, and
I
putting
would have to
that-
calculate the net number because each size has a different profit margin.
I think just we need to just come up with a good basic plan to start and then see what happens with the volunteers, cause that is the biggest issue that we have heard, is that, who's gonna run it? Who's gonna staff it? Who's gonna follow up on it? And everybody's just kinda pushed and pulled, and so, as I said, the 5K is not happening, and the thought is, let's see if people miss it. And they really weren't, they were making money off the underwriting, but the event itself was not making money, and fewer people were signing up for it. And so,
Which is the question of what's our demographic? Because
Yeah.
if it's because the children have outgrown that type of event and the parents are now empty out, there could be so much, we should understand who we're trying to target and what is gonna resonate with them in order for us to be successful, whether it's Women's Club or the Parks Commission or City Council, in conveying the messages that's important. I think
We
that's,
have a community profile up on our new website that has our demographics,
You do?
children and a number of adults and households. I just sent you a link to it.
perfect, thank you. that's super, because again, I think if we understand who we have here now, as you've mentioned, in 15 years, it's changed dramatically. So let's find out who we are and get to it.
I mean, can that be copied to everybody on the park commission? 'Cause
It's on, it's actually
Oh,
on the website.
okay.
If you go to, tools for business,
Okay.
and then, it's under business tools, you'll see community profile and demographics, so it's just available.
Community profile, demographics, I love it.
Okay, we ready to adjourn?
think
Do you have another comment?
I would just add that the study that you referred to earlier, the corridor study, is also on the website, easily reviewed. I did last night.
You're adjourning, oh, wait, we have to vote to adjourn, right?
Motion.
You don't have to.
Motion to adjourn,
Okay.
You can.
I'll second.
You don't have to.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that was a good meeting, we're getting stuff done, slowly but surely.
I'll have to fill out a form to submit this expense.
I'll have Abel fill it.
Okay, so there's that.
Okay.
The only other thing that I wanted to just address with this was just, can I send you a couple more sentences just to add about the deadline, the ordering deadline?
Sure. For the website.
Expected installation and kind of where they're being installed, and I will just send you, it's like 2 sentences.
Perfect. Yeah.
And then I think we're done. Yeah, and then hopefully the orders will come in. But what I would love to have is
I will
front,
work on that.
back, and then maybe just print out a third little piece of paper here with the website address and then get it laminated on an 8.5
Well,
by
and
11.
yeah, and I have too. You
Yeah,
get
like,
I used to, well,
4 of them.
yeah, but
I'll go tie them with that cute little
It's
puppy
interesting, like,
paw ribbon, just onto the fence posts near the entrances to the dog park. And then also near where we've got the 2 banners right now. Well, one of them's at the front of the park, but if you
Yeah.
see 4,
It's not.
yeah.
it's coming
website, front and back,
all of a sudden, and
that would be awesome.
we were just like, we can't set
Definitely.
ourselves up
Adding it
for
to my.
failure here, or we're never gonna get
Just something for
anybody
people
to
to
use
notice
it.
and look at,
They think
hopefully,
they
and be
have
like,
to
what is that?